Okay, it looks like most people are signed in. So we're going to get started. Welcome to the Value of Finding a Mentor. My name is Estefi Jaramillo. I'm an executive committee member of the Young Alumni Network, and I'm looking forward to hearing from these incredible speakers along with all of you. Before we get started, I want to remind you of some quick housekeeping guidelines. We recommend using speaker view, not gallery view for best results. Participant microphones will be disabled during the presentation. If the speakers ask for participation or if you have a question during the Q&A portion, please unmute yourself. We've scheduled time for Q&A after the presentation, but please feel free to drop your question in the chat box in the meantime, and I'll make sure the speakers get it. If you need help at any time, please just message the meeting host through the chat box for assistance. Without further ado, I'm happy to introduce our two presenters, Sarah Duquesnoy and Kanasha Paul. Sarah Duquesnoy serves as the Assistant Vice President of Alumni Relations at FIU. Sarah is an alumni advocate and strategist with experience in engagement, fundraising, communications, and operations, a nationally recognized alumni relations professional. Sarah leads the global network of 250,000 graduates and the professional team who focuses on serving and advocating for alumni while creating engagement experiences designed to enhance the personal and professional lives of FIU graduates. In 2016, Sarah received the FIU Torch Award, which is presented annually to an employee who exemplifies FIU's institutional values of truth, freedom, respect, responsibility, and excellence. Sarah holds counsel for the advancement and support of education, Faculty Star recognition, and served as the 2018 Council of Alumni Association Executives Robert G. Foreman Fellow. She's a graduate of the University of South Florida and holds a certificate in Women in Leadership from Cornell University. Then we have the incredible Kanasha Paul, who is the president and CEO of the Black Professionals Network, a proud Miami resident with Haitian descent. She attended Florida International University, earning a Bachelor of Science in Political Science with minors in International Relations and English. She then obtained her Juris Doctorate at Nova Southeastern University, where she concentrated on business and nonprofit management. While in law school, Kanasha established the inaugural Black Professionals Summit in 2014, an annual conference convening South Florida's best and brightest for leadership and professional development workshops and sessions. She serves as a shareholder for the Miami Millennial Investment Firm, a real estate organization that encourages young professionals to follow suit in investing and revitalizing urban communities. Additionally, she works as a business consultant for the Miami Minority Business Development Agency, where she assists business owners in developing and fine-tuning their value propositions by restructuring their organizational and process models, and develops tailored marketing strategies to increase their market share within their respective industries. Sarah and Kanasha, welcome again and take it away.
Hey.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here this morning. Hi, Kanasha.
Hi, Sarah. It's always a pleasure to join you in a chat. And it's always a pleasure to join fellow FIU alum. So definitely happy to be here.
Awesome. You know, Kanasha and I have a lot in common. And I would say that one of the many things that we have in common was that is the recognition that we have for the mentors who have played meaningful roles in our lives, but also how important it is for us to mentor other individuals. And that was something that Kanasha and I early on, we connected early on in our relationship. So we're really excited to be here with you all this morning. And we're hoping that our experience and our insights can help each and every one of you as you continue to navigate life after college. So I first want to start off by asking Kanasha a question before we dive in. Do you remember, or what do you recall as your first mentorship relationship in your life?
Well, outside of I think my parents, I would say, especially I would say like with my father, he was like early onset, like my earliest mentor. Like we spent a lot of time in my early days. My mom worked, had long hours, but my dad, he was a pastor. So his schedule was a little bit more flexible. And so we just always had an avid, we always just had that relationship of like reading and sharing about life experiences. But I would think after that, it was a teacher by name Mr. Thomas in middle school. And I think that's what I want to share, that your mentor does not have to be from the same gender. You could have, you know, I have mentors who are men, women, and you can have binary. So I think there's very, I think when I think back, my first mentorship outside of my father, outside of my mother, was Mr. Thomas. It was he was my, I would say, fourth grade history teacher, and I just remember just going after class, and he would just educate me so much about like different historical aspects, how history plays an important part of like your worldview on life. We would just have a lot of great conversations about like, you know, understanding like community and culture. And so I think for when I think of mentorship, it definitely could be look a lot of different ways. I've had long-term mentors, I've had short-term mentors, I've had mentors for a specific skill, for a specific point in my life. And so, but if we're talking about first, I would definitely go probably start with Mr. Thomas.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Thomas would be very proud of you today. And we're going to get into more of that, different types of mentorships. And Kanasha mentioned it. Some are short-term, long-term, some are for very specific reasons. So we're going to touch upon that. We wanted to share with you some of the reasons why we have found mentoring so important in our lives. And something, Kanasha, that you talk a lot about is the professional socialization that mentors help us with. Can you shed some light around that important component of why mentorship is so critical in our lives?
Well, honestly, it comes down to a simple thing, is that we don't have to start life from scratch always, right? Like there is a beauty about learning from people's past experiences, people's their skill sets, their knowledge bank, and to help us move further along faster and more leaner. And so I think that's why I think it was very interesting that Mr. Thomas was kind of my first, because he was a history teacher. So I think it was like it really tied into the fact that there is beauty in learning in someone's history to be able to move smarter in the present and in the future. And I think when you think about professional socialization, it's like part of that networking, part of building those relationships, is to realize that people are here to, we are here to learn from each other, that we are supposed to be able to kind of create a ebb and flow. And I know I've taught him just as much as he taught me. It's like Mr. Thomas was a very old white guy, and I was very, and so I know, but it was our dialogues of learning about culture, community. It was always fascinating to me, and it also helped my love for like history and people, and understanding people better and understanding their stories. So I feel like that is something that's really important, that people should definitely continue on in their professional socialization, professional networking, and really understanding that like learning from someone is the best head start that you can give yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you really touched upon all of the other points that we shared with our audience today. And knowing that you have someone who you can go to, who's going to give you that honest opinion or perspective or advice is really priceless. So take a look at some of the other ideas that we put out there, and drop in the chat for Kanasha and I what really stands out to you, and maybe what you would want us to expand upon. But as Kanasha said, learning from the experience of others, and really recognizing that you don't know everything, and you also have a lot to bring to that other person, is a concept that we're going to talk about a little later on this morning. So we know that research confirms that quality mentoring relationships have powerful positive effects on young people in a variety of personal, academic, and professional situations. And we're going to give you some examples of that in our talk this morning. So Kanasha talked about having a teacher, and that was someone who she obviously got to interact with on a daily basis. But as a young graduate, you might be feeling a little overwhelmed with how do I reach out? How do I find someone who's a mentor, especially when we are in a world of social distancing. We're not able to see each other. We're not able to go into offices or go to in-person events. So we wanted to talk a little bit about where you might find a mentor in general, but particularly now in our new virtual environment. So Kanasha, what are some of your thoughts around strong sources of mentor identification?
Well, I would definitely go into, I don't know if we're going straight into the next slide as far as just kind of like, first, identify why you need a mentor. I think that it's really important. Sometimes you have mentors by chance. So I always look at it as like, first, identify the area you're looking for guidance in. It could be a skill. It could be learning more about a specific industry, or is building your personal brand. You have to also understand outside of that, there's some mentor relationships that are formed just by happenstance. Like just because there's circumstance, just because of the environment. Like for example, though I had a wide range of teachers in school, when I think about some of my early on mentors, they were teachers because of, the circumstance. But when I left school, my mentors were a lot due to because of me networking, me going to events, me jumping in people's LinkedIn's or their DMs. It's just like, because it's just like, I knew that I was looking for guidance in this particular area. And then knowing that there are people out there who are willing to share that because they saw that we could learn from each other. But I would say if you're an early grad, entry level, and I would say this is advice that applies in any stage of your professional life. I run a professionals network. I can't tell you how many times there are older professionals who still don't understand the art of networking or understand the art of developing a mentorship, because you reach to this point in your life that you think that you know it all, you got it, you don't need any help. No, life is not meant to be lived alone, not meant to be achieved alone. So therefore, really figuring out like what you're looking for can really help shape how you go about mentoring and seeing the value in it. So if you're looking for a mentorship from a guidance perspective, like for a skill, the second thing would be to figure out where they are. So you gather a list of thought leaders and professionals that meet those goals. Like I put an example here, like Jane wants to improve her confidence and become an influencer. We know that there's a lot of people who want to develop their personal brand. An influencer can be, you can decide to be an influencer from like the traditional sense of social media where they're selling products or ads and they're putting pictures, or you can be an influencer from a thought leader perspective. Like you want to be the next person to be the foremost person on hospitality or on communication or in history or in marketing. Like you want to set yourself as being the next go-to person that someone looks to. So you have to look at the people who are got there and who are already doing the work that you admire, because the reason you probably want to do it is because you've seen it happen, and so therefore you want to be able to emulate it in some way. And so the example I put is that she can look on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, and I recommend that your search for a mentor does not have to be in these traditional mediums. You don't only have to use LinkedIn. That's why I reference Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, because there are a lot of people who are willing to be your mentor and who will share information from you. And it doesn't have to be from Facebook or LinkedIn, or sometimes even from a mail or from email. Like depending on the relationship you have with people, they'll feel comfortable with that. And then you can and resonate with the image that you're looking for. Third thing, perfect your pitch. I can't stress this enough, that how important it is to really know what you're looking for in a mentorship, and then being very clear about that. And you can start off, like I think about the people that I mentor and why those relationships were successful is that they knew exactly what they wanted from me. Like they were just like, I want to learn how you do X, Y, and Z. And they were clear about that. And then most importantly, they followed up. I go to so many events, virtual and in person, like now more virtual. And I cannot tell you how many times that if I would drop my link to set up an appointment or send my email or send my LinkedIn, or give my business cards when we were out in public. And people will talk me up at events wanting to know more about from like law or from business or for the work that I do at Black Professionals Network, but they wouldn't follow up and they wouldn't show up. So definitely that's something really important to make sure that you are doing. And I think that's very clear. Because mentors are everywhere, honestly, like they really are. You can truly learn from almost anyone, like even people you don't like.
Well said. And you said a lot there. So I want to go back and touch upon a few things. First, I want to tell everybody who's participating with us today, the fact that you are here means you are ahead of most of your peers, because you woke up on a Saturday morning, you got up early when you didn't have to, and you logged in. So you're gaining knowledge that the majority of your peers as young alumni or the class of 2020 aren't hearing today. So we congratulate you. We recognize that and keep going and keep going and observing it. And this is where your FIU Alumni Association stands in and comes into place. Because if you imagine anything that you want to learn about, or any type of professional who you want to model yourself after or learn from, you can find all of those people through your FIU Alumni Association. And today is an example of how we do that throughout the year. But the more and more that you get involved with your FIU Alumni Association, if you get involved with Black Professional Network or one of our regional chapters, I see our New York City network is here with us today. We create these opportunities throughout the year for you. And that networking and mentorship is sort of like a natural byproduct even through those interactions. So Kanasha and I want to take a moment to recognize that you already see that, right? That already clicked with you because you're here. The next thing, for those of you who heard Brandon, our keynote speaker, talked about, he said, DM me. And like Kanasha said, you have to get creative and find ways to really reach out to who those individuals are. And I think your point, Kanasha, to be clear and direct is so important, because I get some emails from young people a lot, and they'll ask me questions, but they don't come out and say, I'm looking for someone to help me get through this. And I think it's important not to make an assumption that your prospective mentor thinks or recognizes that you're asking for that mentorship. So to be really explicit, and I loved what you said about the short term and the long term, or if it's for a specific skill, or even, I had someone reach out to me recently and said, I'm having a really hard time working remotely. Could I just check in with you once a week to kind of help me get through that? So that specificity is so important. We can't make assumptions, especially in this virtual age. And finally, the follow-up piece, that really stood out to me, Kanasha, as something that's so important. That's what will distinguish you throughout your professional career is how you follow up. Not only how you show up, but how you follow up. And one thing I wanted to add to that I have experienced myself is someone will reach out to me and say, I know you know this person, or I saw on LinkedIn or on Instagram that you're friends with this person. Could you make the intro for me? And we have a past board member who would always say, that's called cutting the line, right? So I've worked now 20 plus years on my professional network, really cultivating those relationships and growing those relationships. So if Jane asked me, could you introduce me to Kanasha Paul? And I say, absolutely, I'm going to tee up that introduction. And then I find out that you never followed up with Kanasha. That only makes me look bad to Kanasha, but it also makes that person who reached out to you looks bad. So not only following up with the person who you make that direct contact with, if you meet Kanasha at a networking event and she gives you her card, absolutely, you have to make it a point to follow up with her. But if there's another person involved that helped you orchestrate that introduction, that's now two people who you have to be following up with, and to make sure that you're keeping them sort of in the loop. Because if someone is allowing you to cut that line, right? If Kanasha is part of a network that I was sustaining and cultivating for the past 20 years, you just sort of cut the line, cut those 20 years to get up right in front of the line to interact with Kanasha. And you have to make sure that you're giving that proper follow-up to everybody. So I think those are really, really strong points that you shared with us, Kanasha. last thing we wanted to share around where to find a mentorship, and I think your tips about really everywhere, you just have to really focus and narrow down who you're looking for. The FIU Alumni Association does have an online mentorship program. You can check us out, and we'll drop it in the chat. It's at mentorship.fiu.edu. And this is open for students to find mentors from FIU alumni, and then FIU alumni to mentor our current Panthers, our current learners. So that's a great opportunity. And again, it's all online, and that helps us in this virtual space significantly.
Correct. And I would want to add that, because you mentioned really amazing points, Sarah. I think I just would want to add that mentorship, especially early on, helps you practice relationship building skills. Like throughout your whole entire life, that is really going to be the skill that you're going to have forever, forever. And learning how to do that now is really going to set the tone for everything. I know so much about people by how careless they are with the relationships that they maintain, because it's just it shows so much in your character, just kind of like if you're not going to be intentional with people. And this is skill sets that you're going to be able to apply in your professional and in your personal life, about being intentional, listening, following up, being clear. Like, I can imagine these are the same talking points if you were in a relationship with someone, a romantic relationship, that these are the same things that they're asking for too. Be clear, like, tell me what you need. It's like follow up, be intentional, listen, like listen to hear, like these are skill sets that you're always going to need, and learning to practice them in both realms of your life is going to set you up to be an amazing person. I always tell people, like, dare to be a unicorn,
I love that. Earlier this morning, we heard Dr. Rosenberg say his quote was, having a growth mindset means stretching yourself and sticking to it. And what Kanasha just said is discipline. And as a young professional, getting in the mode of having that daily discipline is so important. Even if it means you have to schedule a block of time in your calendar every morning or every afternoon or every evening, and think about, who are the people I want to connect with today? Who are the people I need to follow up with? Is so, so critical. And Kanasha and I, when we were preparing for our talk today, I shared with her that I only hear from someone when she's a certain person, when she's looking for a job. And that's her thing. She never reaches out and shares content or checks in. And that speaks a lot about how she manages her relationships. And I think, Kanasha, you really spoke to that cultivation. And think about it. I mean, Kanasha, one of the things that you've sent me article. I mean, we also have we're friends. We'll disclose that. We have a personal relationship. But I know that you, from time to time, you share articles with people in your network. You engage them in conversations. I mean, it's not just about transactional things. And that's something we really want to underscore with everyone today. Your network is not just about helping you get things, but it's learning from each other, sharing information, and being regular parts of their life. So don't just be someone who pops up when you need help, right? But how can you add value? And that's the next topic that we want to talk about, reciprocal relationships. This is something that
I know we talked about this. We were on the phone for a minute talking about this one.
Yes. So my example of the person I only hear from is when she's looking for a job would be an example of a non-reciprocal relationship. And we also want to talk to you about, as young Panthers, young alumni, you might be feeling like you have nothing to offer your prospective mentor. So we want to kind of set a stage with all of you today to get you in the mental state when you go to the table, for you to recognize what you bring to the table. So Kanasha, do you want to walk us through some of that for our audience?
Yeah, so reciprocal relationships are very key. But first, I would preface that in any relationship that you establish, you also have to figure out what you want and what does that person want, right? Some people want transactional relationships. They only want someone to reach out to them because maybe they're overwhelmed with other things. They only want that popping, right? And you have to figure out early on if that's the relationship you want. You do not have to accept everything that comes your way. If someone decides that wants to be that way for you and it works for you, then proceed. If it doesn't, then make it very clear, make it very clear that, hey, really appreciate to help you, but this, I would really want this relationship to feel more, reciprocal. Is there any other way that I can be of assistance to you? Like, can we have a moment to have a chance to have a coffee, or to be able, like, hey, you know what, if, like, sometimes you might have to set the tone of that relationship so they can see the direction that you want to take it. Because it's key. Like, we're busy. I know for me, my friends know that I'm more of a, it's like I'm a cross of both. So depending on what's on my schedule, I can be very, not necessarily transactional and like me giving, but like wanting people to just be like, tell me what you want and keep it moving. Like, we don't have to do the song and dance. Like, we just like, tell me, like, you need something cool. Like, don't like be on my phone for 30 minutes and you really need something and you're trying to drag it out. Like, if you just need something, just spit it out so that I can just handle it right then and there and keep it moving. And then for others, if I don't have that relationship with you, then yeah, I'm like, you have to kind of talk to me. Like, I don't know you. Like, where are you coming from? Like, and that's, everyone has to set the tone of those relationships. Like, and you have to really figure out what's comfortable to you, and you can dictate it. When I was younger in my professional, well, I'm not saying I'm old, but when I was early on in my professional career, I had a lot of mentors who were significantly older than me. Like, it was because the career path that I was in, the age range is usually wide. In law and business, the age ranges are so wide. And because of that, I reached a lot of professionals who thought like the relationship had to be one side, like they were talking at me or talking to me, and it couldn't be like reciprocal. And so I started realizing, people love feeling valued and people love outcomes. So I just started showing up and listening to figure out what were their biggest pain points. And that's what I would show up with. And so therefore, not only was I getting something from it, where they were sharing me their insights, they were being able to give me more clarity about either how the business ran or about something I wasn't clear about. They felt valued when I came into their office, because they knew that every time Kanasha was going to come into that office, I was either going to give them value, I was going to provide something a solution to a problem, because I knew that even if I was significantly younger or not as experienced, there's something that I can do. Something, whether it's even just sharing like a cool tip, even if converting a PDF, like I made someone's day in the office once because I helped them learn how to convert a Word document to PDF. And for them, that was reciprocal enough, Yeah. So everyone is just really, but it goes back to the first part of listening. You won't even know how to show up for a person if you don't listen, and if you're not having those intentional conversations to figure out how to make the relationship reciprocal, because you went in with your email or your DM and made it very clear you wanted a mentor and you wanted it for this reason. But then now your job moving forward is to listen to them, and they'll share like in passing or based on stuff they post or whatever, a pain point. And that is your opportunity to really set yourself apart and really show that you care about that relationship by stepping in those moments.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said.
So I think we have some hands that came up. I know they're like,
we'd love to hear from all of you now, and take any questions that the audience might have.
Alicia, I know your hand's been up for a while. Do you have a question? I wasn't sure if it was just, I think we have Alicia Gonzalez or Alicia. You can just unmute yourself and then we can.
We actually have, yes, we actually have about 15 minutes for you to answer some questions. And we have received a few through the chat box.
Okay.
Yes, so David Nevia asked, if I'm looking for a mentor, where do I immediately start? What's the first step? I want to be proactive and find one, but I don't know where to search, find, or locate one.
Great. Well, FIU, we have for platform, the mentorship.fiu.edu. I think going to that platform and knowing what you're looking for as far as in a mentor is just like, you want a mentor for what? Is it because for a specific industry that you're in? Did you just graduate from a certain career path and you want to get more guidance on it? LinkedIn is also definitely a great tool as well. If you're looking. Another tool that, because you guys are still alumni, another great tool is still connecting back to your school, your college or university. They are plugged in with a bunch of people in their network, either past alumni, either sponsors, donors, department heads, faculty instructors that you can reach out to them and they'll help direct you, because you might not realize in your field or in your career study the different pathways that career can take, and they'll have a really great understanding of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great distinction, Kanasha, and it's a great question, because you do need help. And you need to seek that help and that advice from people. And those people may not be your mentor. They may not end up being your mentor. What they're giving you is a form of mentorship, but that's, again, the greatness in your relationship with FIU. You were a student for just a few years at FIU, but you will spend your lifetime as a graduate of FIU, and we will always have programs for you. We dropped that website in the chat because that's an immediate step that you can take this afternoon. Go ahead and register online and get a match, and that happens automatically. But don't stop there. Continue to build and continue, to keep seeking out those influences in your life.
It's like dating, guys. Like as I always tell people a lot of things. I give that analogy even to my business clients. I always tell them, like, guys, business is like dating. You have to think about that even when you're courting your clients, where you're courting your partners, that these skill sets apply everywhere. They really do.
Absolutely.
I see you responded the main question, since a lot of people were asking, where can they find mentors? So it is through mentorship.fiu.edu. But I also have two questions that will surely help young professionals. Kanasha, as I'm sure throughout your life, you had a couple of mentors to reach your level of success. Which mentor marked your life significantly and why?
Oh, so I'm not gonna share their name because so this is actually a great segue. You can have an anti-mentor. So so I explain to people that sometimes it's the person that you least want to be like can shape your mentorship journey, can shape your professional journey. So I definitely had a professional mentor, and there were so many things that I did not want to duplicate. And I think it was difficult because we shared a lot of similarities in background. And I think it was just very hard to see that example of like that variation of how it can turn. And so yeah, so I always tell people, like, anti-mentors are real. Like, there's anti-heroes or anti-villains, and you can learn just as much from them. Like I took the lesson, I took the good things about them, of course, because I never look at people in either black or white, or like in these like bad or good. I just take it from a holistic approach. So there was a lot of great things that I did learn about from this person. But there were just key areas in how, like, I felt like in the relationship building aspect of how to really manage people, being able to kind of have empathy and relationship built is like in balancing work and in relationship building. It really taught me a lot about how I would want a different type of environment and culture to be shaped.
I agree. Sometimes you do have to discard what you don't want to be, right? Or what you don't want to reach the level of. So
Mhm.
that's great information. We actually received another question from Jarek Lewis. My question for Sarah and Kanasha is, when they were looking for their mentors, did they ever feel as if they were possibly holding back the person they were seeking mentorship from?
Um, Maybe early on, because it's like, I think when you're in your, I think when you first start out early, you know that the leverage is a little bit off because you're just coming out, you don't have a lot of experience. So I can see why for a lot of young professionals, they always feel like they don't have a lot to give. But that's why it's important to have like a directory of mentorship, because um the person that you want may not be ready to be a mentor. And sometimes that is the case. Like I've had mentors that I've asked people like, hey, can you be a mentor? They didn't have the bandwidth. They were very clear, like, unfortunately, I would love to mentor you. I don't have the bandwidth or the capacity at the time. But here are other resources that you can take. And I reached that point at a point, like someone wanted me to mentor them. And I was mentored to the T. Like I had like 4, and I was like, I had to say, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I do not have the capacity to mentor another person because I really want to take those relationships seriously. And so it's like, and I wanted to make sure that I could do my work, manage my social life, and be able to be an effective mentor to my mentees. And so sometimes it does happen that way, but that's why it's having those candid conversations. And your mentor will tell you what we hope, because some people are afraid of saying no. And so that sometimes you'll see that happen. Like they'll say yes and they won't always understand what saying yes means. But that means early on you have to like see that, and then just you can bow out gracefully yourself and then go on to another mentor who can be of assistance to you.
Mhm.
Of course. And talking about being a mentor, Sheila Shed has another question. And it's saying, what tips do you have for mentors to be better mentors? I think it correlates directly with what you were saying.
Being very honest about what you can and can't do. um I also think it's the listening game on both ends. The mentee has to listen, but the mentor also has to listen to what the person really is looking for. I think sometimes as mentors, we get so excited, we just want to dump our information, and then we get to the place of that we're talking at people or talking to them, and not realizing that it is supposed to be like listening to hear them and really figuring out where are their pain points. Because I have a mentee who initially they came to me thinking they wanted to be a mentee because of my experience of, because they knew that I was in law school. They wanted to see if get more information from in that aspect. And then we learned early on that that relationship was not about law school at all. It was about community development. It was more about them wanting to see what was possible. And and I and at first it was me. I thought I was structuring it about like, oh, law school is this, you can do that, da, da, da. And then hearing them more, I realized, oh, like you really are more of you're you're fascinated with the fact that took this degree and took it to different areas. So let's have those conversations about how you can pivot and change and go from one career path to another and be comfortable doing that. So being a good mentor it's the same skill sets of like listening and being honest. When I don't have the time for my mentees, I just make it very clear, like, hey, unfortunately, I don't have the time frame, but let's schedule something, or like let me know what makes comfortable to you, or what is your preference. People are more understanding than we think. I think like sometimes we hold this anxiety that, oh my gosh, they're gonna be mad at me or we're letting them down, and lots of times it's all in your head.
So it's a matter of priority too, right? To understanding how to prioritize different mentees. That's always a great approach to have. And then I see Alicia Gonzalez is raising her hand would you like to ask a question directly? Rebecca, maybe you can help me unmuting her. Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Alicia.
Nope. I think I had asked about
Can't hear
her.
you. Maybe we're not.
Yeah, I don't see Alicia in the room anymore, so I think we can move.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
well, we do have another question.
Okay.
Sarah, can you talk a little about your personal board of directors philosophy?
Yes. So I have a personal board of directors. I did not come up with that terminology. I heard about it somewhere from someone. But I have a group of mentors. Some have been with me since I graduated from college. And actually, I just added someone a few months ago. And I consider them my inner circle of confidence and trusted advisors. And it's many of them know each other just from business and shared industry. And it's a group who I really, I engage with them all the time. And some of my interactions with them is not necessarily about them giving me, and actually most of my interaction with them is more about industry and how we can help each other. But that's the group, that's the core group. And they have provided me significant value over time. So I would encourage everyone to start thinking about how you can develop your own personal board of directors. Chances are you might already know who your directors are in your life. If you have a faculty member or a professor or even a friend, it can be someone, it can be a group of people who you can trust, you know that they're going to be honest with you, and you can help each other. You both parties are interested in helping each other elevate. And I think that it's an interesting time, and Kanasha, we've even talked about this. The older you get, you really recognize that when your friends succeed, you succeed too. And Kanasha and I are huge cheerleaders, not only for our inner circles and our friends, but for everyone. And because when everyone does good, when everyone succeeds, it helps us all. And really focusing in on having that consistency has been really, really important to me, because my personal board of directors know, just from the relationship, know things that I want to work on, that I might want to change in my life or my career. And they also know what I can bring to the table for them. So, you know, there's been lots of articles. If anybody wants to help if anyone wants to follow up with me after, I'd be happy to share some articles about the concept of a personal board of directors, but highly recommend that for everyone.
I love it.
And I'm sorry, guys, Alicia is still in the room and she did want to ask a question, so I apologize.
Okay.
I'm going to unmute her now.
Hi, Alicia.
Or Alicia, you may have to unmute yourself, but you should be able to. All right, let's just give her 1 second, see if she can get on mic. Elise, are you able to unmute? Okay. Sorry, we have to close out in a sec. So Elise, if you want to message me, I can make sure that our speakers get your message. And if you have a question, we'll get that answer back to you.
Definitely. What I wanted to point out is that it is true. Having a powerful network is so important to push for your success in your life. Sarah and Kanasha, thank you both again for your insights and for taking the time to spend with us this morning. For everyone else, participants, please note we will be taking a 15-minute break before the financial literacy breakout sessions beginning at 12 p.m. So please feel free to get up and stretch, check your phone or email, grab a snack, whatever you need to do. You should have received all your meeting links in your confirmation email, but they are also being posted in the chat box now if you need to copy the link for the next session. I hope you found this session as impactful as I did, and thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you at noon for the next session.